everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. I'm recording this on Saturday night, but by the time that I publish this, Ramadan will have started. And I really have my eyes on this for a number of reasons. And I have some articles to share with you. And also, I want to refer you again to this video that came out by TBN Israel, where he talks about this year's Ramadan and how it's different and how there's a lot of potential for violence and escalation in this war. And at this part of the video, he says, listen, guys, this is crazy. Usually this street is packed with people that are shopping in these shops on my side. Everything is closed here because of the lack of Muslim tourism in the country due to the war this year in Israel. And, you know, he's talking about how usually things are ramping up, like festivities and getting ready for Ramadan, but it's kind of like a ghost town right now. And I have more to share with you about that. So before we get to that, this is a new article that just came out today on Saturday. Mossad, which is essentially their CIA, where it's like an intelligence service. Mossad, Hamas wants to ignite region on Ramadan more than it wants a hostage deal. Okay, Hamas is more interested in igniting the Middle East during Ramadan than in pausing the Gaza war, the Mossad warned on Saturday night, as it seemed that a hostage deal was not in the offering before the start of the Muslim holy month that begins on Sunday night. And from what I've seen, it actually depends on the sighting of the moon, so it may be Sunday night or it may be Saturday. But either way, by the time that you're watching this, there may already be things going on or things may be getting underway, so make sure to check the news. Okay, but continuing, quote, at this stage, Hamas is holding to its position as if it was uninterested in a deal and is striving to ignite the region during Ramadan at the expense of the Palestinian residents of the Gaza Strip, the Mossad said. Now, in a previous video that I did about this, we read that it may be that they don't want to release hostages right now because if they did, then tensions would kind of lower. And it would cause problems potentially for Hezbollah to join the war or to like escalate things because, you know, there's kind of like a temporary truce or peace as hostages are being exchanged. This way, things remained heightened, you know, tensions remain heightened. And you basically create the conditions where there's still a lot of tension between Israel and Hamas and, of course, you know, Hezbollah and the rest of them. So we've read the articles that have talked about that. Well, they pointed to Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, how he said that I guess their intelligence suggests that Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas want this to be phase 2 of the war. So, and like I said, we're going to be looking at the conditions in Jerusalem right now and in Israel and among Muslims and how they're looking to this upcoming Ramadan, and it's not good. They have this on the mind, the war that's going on with Hamas, which in my opinion will almost certainly increase the chances of violence. You know, there's a bad air, or there's like a really bad mood right now among Muslims in Israel and in Jerusalem. Okay, so continuing, the mediators, Egypt and Qatar, with the help of the United States, had hoped to see a deal in place that would see the release of some 40 hostages in exchange for a 6-week pause in the war in time for Ramadan. Israel, Qatar, Egypt, and the U.S. have all feared that without a deal, Hamas would use the religious fervor of Ramadan to ignite violence, particularly in Jerusalem, that would set back efforts for a deal. Now, this is really concerning. I've said before, you know, it's one thing for like war to be happening in other parts of the country, but when it gets to Jerusalem, I think that's when it starts to get kind of prophetic. And I know people have preconceptions about how the final war is supposed to go, and Gog and Magog, the war and the battles within that war, Armageddon and the siege of Jerusalem. I tend to see things in natural ways, and I feel like this could be that last battle in Jerusalem if things get really bad. And I think the conditions are right. They're probably the most like this that they've ever been ever since Israel became a country. Okay, U.S. President Joe Biden told reporters in Pennsylvania on Friday that the situation was, quote unquote, looking tough. A reporter asked him, "Are you concerned about the violence in East, the violence in East Jerusalem without a deal?" Biden shot back, "I sure am." So I can only assume that what's being referred to here when we're saying East Jerusalem is we're talking about the old city, but in particular, the Temple Mount and Al-Aqsa Mosque. Because again, if you've been watching this situation for the last couple of years, and we've talked about it on the channel, there's been a lot of tension on the Temple Mount. Let's go there right now. Temple Mount. It's only been within the last couple of years that you've had scenes of Israeli police going into Al-Aqsa Mosque and arresting people, and it's led to a lot of conflict. Last year, after those arrests, it just so happened that Ramadan and Passover overlapped last year, and so things were really tense. The Israeli police conducted arrests, and after they did, Hamas started firing lots of rockets at Israel. That was like just before, or like a flare-up before the actual war started, right? So anyway, let's get back to this. He noted, however, that the quote-unquote ball was in Hamas's court. The Mossad said on Saturday that talks were ongoing. Quote, "It should be emphasized that the contacts and cooperation with the mediators are ongoing in an effort to narrow the gaps and advance agreements." In a statement on Saturday marking Ramadan, Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh vowed that Palestinians will continue to fight Israel, quote, "until they regain freedom and independence." The Wall Street Journal reported that Qatar had threatened to expel senior Hamas officials living in their country unless a deal is reached. It reported that the Hamas leader in Gaza, Yahya Sinwar, believes that his organization has the upper hand in the negotiations due to political disunity in Israel and international pressure on Israel over humanitarian assistance. Okay, now with the BBC, Gaza war fuels Jerusalem fears as Ramadan set to begin. There are renewed fears of violence spreading, particularly to Jerusalem. Again, we should really pay attention to that. When the war started, I tried my best to keep an eye on X and see whenever there were skirmishes taking place in Jerusalem, and there were some, but there was more going on in the West Bank and obviously the Gaza Strip. So Jerusalem only saw a little bit of it. The situation was bad enough to where the BYU Jerusalem Center was evacuated, where all the students were sent to Greece, and I think at this point they're back home, if I remember right. Here's the BYU Jerusalem Center right here. So there has been some, there have been terrorist attacks, but this might be a point where the focus shifts to Jerusalem, and it seems like that was the initial goal. That's why Hamas called this war or this operation Al-Aqsa Storm, to focus the attention of all Muslims on the Temple Mount and having that be the rallying point. And it looks like today, Monday, your Monday anyway, today, things may have already happened. I'll find out later. And, for the next month, things may be a little bit crazy. Okay. Hamas has reiterated a call for Palestinians to step up visits to Al-Aqsa Mosque. Israel has accused Hamas of, quote, striving to ignite the region during Ramadan, end quote, which is due to begin in the next few days. The third holiest shrine in Islam is a place of worship for local Muslims, but the site, also the holiest place in Judaism, known as Temple Mount, is often a flashpoint during flare-ups in the Israel-Palestinian conflict. Ramadan is due to begin on the 10th or 11th of March, depending on sighting of the new moon. This week, the courtyards of Al-Aqsa were calm as I visited, but Palestinian worshippers' minds were on the war. Pay attention to that, because if their minds are on the war and you have all these people pointing to Ramadan like, hey, this is the time to do something about it, then maybe they will. Quote, people don't feel like celebrating and enjoying the regular Ramadan traditions, said one woman, Ayat, sadly. Continuing her quote, this year they won't go ahead because of what's happening in Gaza. So there's demoralization right now among Muslims that are there in Jerusalem. Here's another quote. This is a comment from Abu Nadir, who had been following the news as he crossed Al-Aqsa in his mobility scooter. Quote, this Ramadan will be difficult. How will we break our daily fast and eat when we think of our compatriots in Gaza? We pray to God for better times. Okay. How this Ramadan plays out depends a lot on events in Gaza, as well as the limitations imposed by Israel, meaning limiting Muslims from going to Al-Aqsa during Ramadan for prayers, right? We've covered that, well, let me just read what it says here. The far right, the far right Israeli National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, did call for tight restrictions on Muslim Israeli citizens' access to Al-Aqsa, saying this was to stop Hamas, quote unquote, celebrating victory while Israeli hostages remained captive in Gaza. However, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has now rejected the plan. He said that worshippers would be permitted to enter the mosque during the first week of Ramadan, as they have in the past, with the security situation reevaluated each week. So I'm a little bit confused at this point. What we had read before is that they were going to do like a age restriction. And I don't know if that's what they kind of did in the past when he says what we've done in the past. I don't really know. Sometimes with things like this, it's hard to follow. But at the very least, I know that they're not going with Ben-Gvir's plan. But I guess we'll have to see. And he said that they're going to reevaluate each week. Okay, continuing. It is not clear yet. It is not yet clear what numbers will be allowed to reach the site. During the Gaza war, Israel has largely blocked Palestinians from the West Bank from entering Jerusalem. Typically, tens of thousands would pass through Israeli military checkpoints to attend Friday prayers during this sacred month. Okay, that's all for that article. And now we have this from PBS NewsHour. As Israel-Hamas war rages on the eve of Ramadan, Jerusalem's old city holds little festivity. Again, I think that probably is not a good thing. It probably exacerbates the situation and even makes things more likely to happen when morale is low. Jerusalem. On the eve of the Muslim fasting month of Ramadan, Jerusalem's old city bears few of its usual hallmarks of festivity. Again, you can see that in this video. This is at like the 3-minute and 43-second mark. I'll put the link for it in the description box below. It's a really good video. Nearly half of the grotto-shaped gift shops are sealed behind metal shutters. The narrow streets that run toward Al-Aqsa Mosque, Islam's third holiest site, are eerily empty. Absent are the fairy lights and shining lanterns that would usually dingle above hurried worshippers. Ramadan preparations in Jerusalem, the spiritual heart of the decades-old Israeli-Palestinian conflict, have been subdued because of the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza, now in its 6th month. With more than 30,000 Palestinians killed in Gaza and hundreds of thousands going hungry, there's little room for expressions of joy. Look at this. This is a little ominous right here, what this guy says. Quote, this will be the black Ramadan. Abu Mausam Haddad said in front of his coffee stand near Damascus Gate, one of the old city's main entrances. But over the next few days, attention is likely to shift from Gaza to Al-Aqsa, which has been a frequent flashpoint for quickly escalating Israeli-Palestinian violence in the past. Hamas, which portrayed its October 7th attack on southern Israel as a battle for Muslim rights at Al-Aqsa, seeks such an eruption now in hopes of engaging Israeli forces on new fronts in improving its leverage in Gaza ceasefire talks. Let's just look at that again. Remember, the defense minister already said that what Israel's facing right now is, let me find it. Let's see, wars and conflicts, 7-front war. That Israel is currently engaged in a 7-front war. The first front is Gaza. The next one is the West Bank. There's also Hezbollah, and it seems like every day that goes by, we're getting closer to all-out war, and that's going to be even worse than Gaza. And I think that the writing is on the wall, and everybody realizes it. So if we know, or if most people believe that this is inevitable, then maybe that will exacerbate things during Ramadan, especially if Israel attacks during Ramadan. If they attack Hezbollah, an all-out war ignites between Israel and Hezbollah. So you have those three, and then you have militias in Syria and Iraq. You have the Houthis in Yemen. They've been causing problems. And then you have Iran itself. And so Ramadan could galvanize this situation, and maybe it'll bring new people into play, such as Turkey. You know, Turkey's been pretty vocal recently about this. So it's like, I feel like all these tensions and stuff are getting funneled down and compressed and galvanized as we approach, or as we're now at Ramadan at the time that you're watching this. Okay, but over the next few days, attention is likely to shift from Gaza to Al-Aqsa, which has been a frequent flashpoint for quickly escalating Israeli-Palestinian violence in the past. Oh, yeah, we already read on that. Quote, there is great fear among people about what Ramadan will look like this year and how the Israeli police will behave regarding the entry and exit into the city, said Imad Mona, who owns a bookshop outside the old city. Israel has limited access to Al-Aqsa to varying degrees over the years, including by barring young men, citing security concerns. The Israeli government has provided few details ahead of this year's Ramadan, which could start as early as Sunday evening. But it has said some Palestinians from the West Bank will be allowed to pray at Al-Aqsa. Most Old City shop owners declined to share their views about the coming Ramadan. Scores of Palestinians have been detained by Israel over social media posts about the war in Gaza since it started. Some who would speak said that more Israeli police have been deployed in the Old City since October. Young Palestinian men are regularly barred from entering the Al-Aqsa compound for noon prayers on Fridays since the war started, according to the store owners. This has fueled speculation about other possible restrictions. The Israeli police did not respond to requests for comment. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has also been vague, saying only that similar numbers of people as last year would be allowed for prayers at Al-Aqsa during this first week of Ramadan. He said this will be evaluated on a weekly basis throughout the month. No further details were made public. Yikes. And then, to finish this off, we have this article from Ynet. Police brace for violence ahead of Ramadan. Okay, thousands of police will be deployed across Jerusalem, with additional forces throughout the country focused on mixed Arab and Jewish cities. CCTV cameras will surveil the Temple Mount and its access routes for real-time monitoring, while drones will oversee the situation from above. Social media will be monitored to identify potential instigators of violence. Jerusalem police have noted attempts to initiate terror attacks during the holiday and are working to deter provocations by extremist Jews, extremist Jews in this case, aiming to incite violence. Because that's the other side of it, right? There are those that want to see conflict. There are those that want things to come to a head, that want a permanent change in the status quo. And they view like war as the only way to do that. and they might be right, and so they're pushing for that. So, if you've noticed anything today already, put it in the comments below. I'll be watching it closely, and whenever there's big news, I'll do a video about it. But this is no joke. It really isn't. Given everything that we've seen pointing to this time of year in 2024, March and April, it seems like this is a ripe time for things to happen in regards to the second coming. I don't know what exactly, but let's just watch and see. Let's see how things play out. So it might get interesting. All right, well, that's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.